to talk to you about the indefinite articles. There are 4 indefinite articles, and I started writing it out right here. Let's see if I can go ahead and finish that up. I have a masculine singular form and a plural form, and you have a feminine singular form and a feminine plural form. Let me see if I can line it up just a little bit better. So I will write it up here. Plural. Okay, and so your the indefinite article that you use needs to agree with the noun that it's describing. So and it means, or one. So if you want to say you have a brother and a sister, because brother is masculine and singular, the indefinite article you're going to want to use is un. And because sister is feminine and singular, the indefinite article you want to use is una. Whereas down here, you're saying, I have some interesting books. What you're describing, the some is describing books. And so since books is masculine and plural, you use unos. Okay? Over here it says English draws a distinction between the definite articles and in the word one. One is only used for counting. In Spanish, there's no such distinction. In Spanish, we use una if the noun follows, and una if the noun is not, una if the noun is not in the sentence. So basically it means that if you can use these guys, I don't think they explain that very well. What they're trying to say is that you can use the indefinite articles as a pronoun, and when you use it as a pronoun, you're going to use uno, una. When it's used to modify a noun, when it comes right before a noun and is not used as a pronoun, anytime you have, just like when we were counting, if you have anything that modifies a noun that goes in front of it, if it ends in O, it's going to drop its O in front. Like if you said, he's a good boy, and the word for good is bueno, you wouldn't say bueno chico, you'd say buen chico, okay? But here they're showing you how it can be used, taking the place of a noun. So, tienes billetes de $5? Do you have $5 bills? Sí, aquí tengo uno. Here I have one. And that one is replacing billetes, but you've made it singular because you just have one. Tienes unas sandalias rojas? Tengo unas, pero son muy viejas. So do you have some red sandals? I have some, but they are very old. Okay, and so there's further explanation because of some of the activities you guys are doing. I want to go through this. As in English, the Spanish indefinite article is used before nouns, referring to things being newly introduced into the discourse, meaning the first time they're introduced. Articles function as adjectives. They precede the nouns, they modify and agree with them in gender and number. So that is just what we were talking about right here. It's a lot of jargon to simply explain that if the noun that's being described with the indefinite article is masculine and singular, then you're going to use the masculine singular spelling of the indefinite article. If the noun being described by the indefinite article is feminine and singular, you need the feminine singular spelling, just like you do with your adjectives. That's whatever they mean when they're saying agreement, okay? Unlike the definite article, the indefinite article is used much less in Spanish than in English, so it's going to be used much less. So here are some of the examples. Uno is used only as a pronoun. The masculine singular article form is un. Hay un libro en la mesa, también hay uno en el escritorio. We went over that you could say there is a book on the table, and when you're using the indefinite article to describe a noun, like right here you've got a noun following your indefinite article. If it's masculine, it drops its O, but if you're using your indefinite article to replace your noun, you keep its O. The plural forms correspond to some, a few, and sometimes a pair. Tengo unas preguntas, like I have a few questions. Hay unos alicates en el garaje, okay? When do we leave it out? This is what I really wanted to focus on because you've got some articles where some activities where you're going to have to choose whether to use the indefinite article or leave it out completely. Okay, so when you're talking about your profession, nationality, religious, or your religion, or your any other status, you leave it out unless it's being modified. So when I want to say, yo soy médico, mi mujer es abogada. So if you're saying like I'm a doctor and my wife is a lawyer, you do not use the article. You only use the indefinite article when you modify the noun by saying like I am a good doctor. By having an adjective, then I put the indefinite article in. And here it's being modified again. She's a lawyer that has a lot of experience. Because the lawyer is being modified by saying that she has a lot of experience, we put the article in. But if you're just saying like somebody's a doctor, somebody's a lawyer, somebody's a teacher, no article. It has to be modified. You have to be describing what kind of doctor, lawyer, teacher they are in order to use the indefinite article. Following the verbs haber, tener, llevar, and usar, when the nouns are not modified, and especially when you're using when you're making a negative sentence, you do not use the indefinite article. So, hay libro de texto or no hay libro de texto. Debes usar lápiz para tomar el examen. No tenemos casa. We don't have a house. No llevo corbata. I don't wear a tie. So in all of these, you can see in English that we are putting in the indefinite article, but in Spanish, we don't. So even though the translation would have an in there, we don't need to write the because in Spanish, they just don't do it. So following these verbs, haber, tener, llevar, usar, do not put in the article unless it's modified. So if it's modified, no tengo un hermano sino tres, here we're modifying that. We're saying I don't have a brother but three. Here you've got red tie. This is a little bit easier when you just see an adjective. So if we're calling the tie red, then we put una. Hay casa or hay una casa que nos gusta. This que nos gusta has modified the casa because now we've got more information about the house. Once there's more information given about our noun, then we modify it. After the prepositions con and sin, before unmodified nouns, we leave it out. So, ahora estoy sin coche, without a car. Like in English, we would put the in Spanish, we leave it without. Before cien, cierto, como, mil, que, and tal, and after demonstratives, or before or after medio and otro, we leave it out. So, en el parque se ve a cierto joven practicando malabarismo. Quiero ver esta película. Esta no me interesa. Hay más de 100,000 alumnos. And you can go through and see more examples. Okay, so when we have the article is generally repeated in a phrase listing related nouns, especially when the gender changes. So in Spanish, you're going to use it, whereas in English, we say, I need a pencil and pen. We don't have to say, I need a pencil and a pen. Although I think you can say that. I probably would say that. In Spanish, we definitely want to use both. And they said especially when the gender has changed. So pluma is feminine, whereas lápiz is masculine. And so therefore it makes most sense to put both. Hay un tenedor y una cuchara, a fork and knife on the table. Okay, so I'm going to finish going over the practice with you. So here it says, tienes un bolígrafo. Sí, aquí tengo. Here we're using this as we're replacing the noun as a pronoun, so we need something masculine. We can't use una because una is feminine, and we can't use un because un is the spelling of your indefinite article that only it has to be followed by a noun. There's no noun here, so the only option you can have is uno. Yes, I have one. Tienes una goma de borrar? No, no tengo. Here I would leave blank. Spanish likes double negative. So, and if you looked back at that sheet, I told you that you often leave out the indefinite article when it comes after verbs like tener, haber, etc., especially when in a negative sentence. So To me, it sounded weird to put una there, even though we're doing una goma de borrar. Later on, we'll get into negative expressions. So for me, I would put no tengo ninguna, because it just sounds weird to put this is an affirmative word. So I would, rather than saying no, I don't have one, they like double negative. So I would say no, I don't have not even one, which is ninguna. But that doesn't matter. So you could still say no tengo. ¿Tienes una cámara de video? Sí tengo. Here it's affirmative, so we can leave it in. I have one, which would be una. Oops. Okay. ¿Tienes carro? Sí tengo. And here, because it's a specific type of car, I would, and so even if it didn't, because this is an affirmative sentence, I would put uno si tengo uno. This time I can't use uno though, because I have a Volvo, so I need to use un. You can't use uno when your indefinite article is immediately preceded by a noun. You've got to shorten it to un. No tengo impresora, tienes que comprar una. You have to buy one. Because you need to tell me what I need to buy. You can't just say tienes que comprar. That's not enough. You have to buy one. Okay, so the same thing here. We're going to plug it in or put the X's. Let's see, maybe I can move this so we have more space. Okay, so you're looking for a roommate and are posting this ad, write the correct articles, una, unos if needed. If no articles needed, put the X. So tengo apartamento muy cerca del campus para dos personas. Tiene cancha de tenis. El apartamento tiene 2 cuartos con un baño y una cocina muy grande. So I think I would leave it out here. Tengo apartamento muy cerca del campus. Okay, so actually we are going to put the un here. Tengo un apartamento muy cerca del campus. And the reason why we're going to put the un is because it's being modified. We've got a lot of information about our apartment, and because of the fact that we have a lot of extra information about the apartment, saying that it's very close to campus for 2 people, we put the un. Then tiene cancha de tenis, it's not being modified, so we wouldn't put the un here, we would leave it out. El apartamento tiene 2 cuartos con baño y cocina muy grande. We're going to make it agree with cocina, and because it's muy grande, we're going to put the una in. El cuarto grande tiene 2 camas y un cuarto pequeño tiene, we're talking about camas here, so we would put una. And that place it's replacing. So we're saying the large room has 2 beds and the small room has 1. And we're using it to as a pronoun here. I blank cable y teléfono. Often after I, we don't use the article, and that wouldn't make sense anyway, because we're saying there's cable, not there is a cable. We mean there's cable like the cable that gives you television. Y teléfono, no hay plaza de garaje, pero si necesitas, if you need una, puedes pagar 50 extra al mes. Cerca del apartamento, hay tiendas de ropa y deportes. And I think part of this got cut off, so I'm going to add some more on here. Pero cerca del apartamento hay tiendas de ropa. You could do either or. When it's plural, you could put the unas, or you could choose to leave it blank. You could say hay tiendas de ropa, or hay unas tiendas de ropa y deportes y, and let me... y 2 supermercados también, centro comercial muy cerca. There also is a commercial center, and that very close by. So that very close by modifies that shopping center, or commercial centro comercial is usually a shopping center. So then we are going to use our article.